all the judges all set? And the negative team? All right, let's get started. Peaceful Tomorrows, an organization of more than 200 families, 200 members of families of victims of the 9/11 attacks, stated on April 12th of 2011, quote, "As families of those who were murdered on that day, we have waited nearly 10 years to see those who have committed these savage criminal acts to be brought to justice. Military commissions have been embroiled in a series of legal challenges, and we fully expect that this inadequate alternative to our well-tested federal court system will continue to delay our pursuit of justice," end quote. The premise outlined by these victims in 2011 holds true to this day. Military commissions have failed to achieve their fundamental purpose for over 18 years. They were intended to deal with international terrorists from the very start, but they have failed to follow through. And based on that basic fact, we urge you to use federal courts and to pass our plan. I'd like to respond to the points brought up by the negative team in their last speech, talking about their burdens to start. They brought up 3 burdens. They have to prove a harm, prove a solution, and prove that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. Now, the negative team focused specifically on the second of these, that we prove a solution. And that's the main theme of their argumentation and my responses to their argumentation. Their first fact that they brought up was that terrorists can appeal. Terrorists can appeal. My first response to this is no evidence presented. My partner just established this in cross-examination. Although the negative team claimed that terrorists can appeal to federal courts, they provided absolutely no evidence of this claim. We can't give them the benefit of the doubt on this issue. My second response is no concrete examples. Not only have they provided no evidence, but they have provided no examples of when someone who is in a military commission or in Guantanamo Bay appealed to a federal court and that changed the result. And my third and final response is no impact to the problem of the system. Even if the negative team can get up and provide evidence for this point, it has no impact to the problem of the current system. Because the main people deciding who are tried in federal courts or military commissions is the Secretary of State. And while people can appeal to federal courts from Guantanamo Bay, most frequently those appeals have failed, and we have evidence for that back at the table. The problem in the current system is that military commissions are often used and people are sent there to be tried, but then those trials never take place. And that's the harm we're attempting to solve. That is not addressed by this point. The next point they brought up was that federal courts are effectively used as their impact at this point. And my response is precedent of success. Precedent of success. Now it's interesting the negative team brought this up because this is exactly our point. The fact that federal courts have already been used in the past 20 or so years, or just a constant precedent of success, shows that they already have proof that they've been working in the current system, meaning that it's not speculative to assume that they continue to work in the future. We can rely on that precedent of success to show why federal courts are a better option than military commissions. That plays exactly to what our points are as the affirmative team. Their next point they brought up were some solvency points, starting with their first, that of a significant improvement. We need to show a significant improvement. And their main point they brought up under that is that there's no proportional comparison in both trials and convictions. My first response is 8 versus 660. 8 versus 660. We brought up in our 1AC how there have been 8 convictions in military commissions compared to 660 in federal courts, and brought up some analysis of that, describing how federal courts are much more well-equipped than military commissions and demonstrating that very fact. My second response is 90% convictions rate. 90% convictions rate. B.U.D. Barnes, J.D. candidate at Boston University's School of Law, stated in 2012, quote, "Prosecutors have developed a variety of tools to secure convictions for the pre-attack conduct of suspected terrorists. These tools have attained a conviction rate of nearly 90% for terrorism or national security crimes," end quote. So what we can essentially see is that when we're comparing both military commissions and federal courts, we can see how federal courts work better. Now, they're also talking about trials and how the trials actually are compared in each system. And my response to that is 32 versus 4,000. 32 versus 4,000. This is something my partner also addressed in the last cross-examination. Federal courts have access to both federal law and military law, which gives them access to far more charges than military commissions. And make no mistake, these are not different charges. It's everything a military commission can do and more, because it encompasses everything that military commissions can accomplish. And this really demonstrates how federal courts are greater than military commissions. Now, my next response to this is no advantage. No advantage to commissions. No advantage to commissions. Now, I'd like to flip this burden for a moment to the negative team. Now, what my partner established in cross-examination is that as the negative team, they're essentially advocating for the status quo. And in doing so, they believe fundamentally that there should be some reason for military commissions to remain an option, as it is in the current system. But how so far, the negative team has only addressed the purported problems of federal courts and missing links in our case, but have not addressed why military commissions should ever be used over federal courts. Furthermore, David Glazier, professor of law at Ohio Law School, for the Ohio State Law Journal, stated that, quote, claims that the commissions offer legitimate practical advantages over Article III trials are also mistaken. Commission rules for classified evidence, for example, are based on the Classified Information Procedures Act, or CIPA, that have been applied by Article III courts in dozens of terrorism cases since 9/11, end quote. One of the issues that is often discussed about federal courts are standards of evidence. But as we brought up in our very first speech, because of reforms taking place in 2006 and 2009, they tried to make military commissions align with the standards used by federal courts. But in doing so, they basically indicated that military commissions are now a much less equipped and less effective version of federal courts that use roughly the same standards. The negative team thus far has proven no advantage to military commissions, and that's a burden on the negative team, because if they advocate for the status quo, they need to show a reason why the status quo is good. So the next point I'd like to bring up is response to the no comparison of finances. My response to this is speculation. Now, they essentially stated that we need to prove as the affirmative team that we're not wasting money. Of course, when we discussed our mandate, we talked about how this falls under normal budgetary means, and it does. If we look at these statistics and we have that back at the table, it costs much more to hold a person in Guantanamo Bay than it costs to hold someone in a federal court. It's a very clear point to see that it's the burden of the negative team to show why there is actually a reason to doubt the financial improvement under our plan. And my second response to this is qualitative advantage. Although my partner agreed that we have to prove a significant harm and a significant solution, we're not just proving that our plan saves money. We're addressing the problem of a lack of closure and a lack of justice. We're achieving due punishment in due time. And justice goes both ways. It's both for the sake of the victims, every single person in this country who's been affected by 9/11 to this day, and also justice to the terrorists who have not yet been convicted and are legally considered innocent while being kept in Guantanamo until they are convicted. Now, with all those responses said, I'd like to bring up one additional advantage, in addition to that due punishment in due time that my partner brought up in her last speech. And that advantage is international cooperation. William Finnegan reported for the New Yorker on May 15th of 2017, quote, it is clear that the military commissions at Guantanamo have failed miserably. Many successful terrorism prosecutions in recent years, moreover, have followed extraditions, or in other words, transfers to the United States, that would not have occurred if Guantanamo and its military commissions had remained an option. Our counterterrorism partners, including the United Kingdom, Canada, Germany, and the Netherlands, refuse to provide evidence or cooperate with extradition requests unless a suspect is to be tried in a criminal court, end quote. The negative team can get up and say that this happens in the current system because federal courts are an option. But what we guarantee through the affirmative team's plan is that federal courts are the only option, such that international cooperation is guaranteed in every scenario. Because the negative team has failed to address the fundamental fact that federal courts achieve due punishment in due time and bring closure to cases that military commissions have failed to do, we ask for an affirmative decision. Thank you so much.
Assuming everyone's ready, I'm going to go ahead and get started. First of all, congrats on breaking in nationals. That's awesome.
Same to you.
But I do have a couple of questions, so let's start by looking at those. First of all, do terrorists go through military commissions?
Well, in the current system, both federal courts and military commissions are an option, and we're identifying that that's a wrong idea.
They're
to
both
believe
an
that they
option.
were.
So have terrorists gone through military commissions then?
As we brought up, there have been only 8 convictions in military
8
commissions.
convictions. Have you presented evidence on how many terrorists have been tried at the military commissions?
As my partner established in cross-examination, the information we know right now is that there are 44 people held in Guantanamo Bay.
Okay,
However,
so
due to the security of that facility, we don't have every
I'm
statistic.
not asking about Guantanamo Bay though.
Okay.
I'm asking about the trials and military commissions.
Because those military commissions are on Guantanamo Bay, we don't have a statistic for every single trial that has been done in the past 15 years.
Okay. Can we agree that terrorists also go through federal courts?
Right, and that demonstrates the
Okay.
president of success.
Is appeal the only way for an individual to go through a specific court?
Absolutely not. That's only one perhaps thing that can take place,
Okay,
but
so
there are
what
no
are the
exemptions
other
for
ways that,
facilities.
I understand, thank you. What are the other ways that an individual can go through the courts?
The Secretary of State decides what terrorists are tried in which system, and the majority are already tried in federal courts, demonstrating their precedent of
The
success.
majority are already tried.
Mhm.
Okay. And so is it your contention that, okay, first of all, how many terrorists have gone through federal courts?
Could you clarify your question?
How many terrorists have been convicted in federal courts?
Once again, that information is not completely clear because the statistics
Okay, what was the
aren't
number
completely released.
660 represented?
Okay, so actually in federal courts, we can extrapolate that number based on the convictions rate. We both proved that 660 have been convicted, and that is a 90% convictions rate.
Okay.
So it's somewhere in the 700s for the amount of people
Okay,
that have been
thank
tried.
you.
We
So
can
how many
extrapolate
have
that.
been tried? You brought up a number, I believe it was 1,000. What?
It was 700s, roughly.
700, okay, my bad. So 700 have been tried, is that correct?
Approximately, if we
And
just take 90%.
660 have been convicted?
Right, so 90% convictions rate.
Okay, and so is it your contention that of that around 700, none of them, not a single one has appealed to federal courts?
That's not our contention at all, but
Okay.
we're not making a contention that appealing demonstrates that our plan should be passed. It doesn't address the flaws in the current
Okay.
system we're trying to solve.
Okay, also, under your fourth solvency point, I believe you tagged it as speculations. Did you bring up any evidence to support your view of that, your
Okay,
refutation?
so if the negative team wants to cast doubt on the financial
I
solvency,
understand
it's your
that.
burden to prove,
I
it's not
understand
ours.
that. Did you bring up any evidence?
The burden is on you
your-
to provide that evidence, not
Okay,
us.
thank you very much. So, alright, actually, I have no further questions, thank you.